must hear our voices. The world must hear our songs. The world must hear the truth. As we keep marching on, we never can rest silent. Beneath the rocket's roar, we must sing our songs of freedom for now and evermore.
Welcome to Voices of Change, a project of Community Shares. Community Shares raises money and awareness for Tennessee nonprofit organizations working for progressive social change. Our show seeks to inform you about our member groups and other issues related to progressive social change. My name is Shelley Wascom, and I'm your host, and I'm very happy to have with us today John Selser and Jackie Kitrell, who are here with the Community Mediation Center. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
So, Jackie, in case people don't know, first, you are the Executive Director of Community Mediation Center, so tell us now, what is CMC?
I would be happy to tell you, Shelley. CMC is what people know as the best kept secret in Knoxville. We are a nonprofit center for mediation that does a lot of work with our county courts and with agencies locally, as well as taking in self-referred people who come wanting mediation. And just to remind people who might not know, mediation is an alternative dispute resolution process that where people can come in and in our case, two mediators, co-mediators, can help them as neutrals. So the mediators remain neutral about the outcome, and they direct the process, and people can come in and have a safe place to have a difficult conversation, be it about a family matter, a matter about raising their child, a matter about payment of a bill, or having something happen with their neighbors that they need to talk about. They can talk about a landlord-tenant matter. They can talk about what else? Many things can be mediated. And we do probably 800 referrals a year. We mediate a little bit less than that because sometimes people don't agree to mediate, and that's okay too. It is completely voluntary. And so if they don't mediate, they can go resolve their disputes in another way. Many of them go to court to do that, which is more expensive and time consuming. So many people use us as mediators to help them when they don't want to go to court, when they want to keep things private, and when they want to have a good relationship with the person after the dispute is over. We've been around since 1993 and work, as I said earlier, with a lot of agencies and the local courts to do what we do. We have about 50 or more volunteer mediators who we train every year. And so I'll put out the word. We're having another training in January. If anybody's interested, please give us a call.
Now you have some, I know John is with a kind of a new task force, or fairly new, that y'all are working on. Can you tell me about that?
Yes, we're trying to add a new program to our repertoire that we're calling Elder Mediation. And this is mediation, as I described it, but trying to address the needs of the aging population in our area and educate the agencies that help the elder people to know when and how to refer cases to mediation. It's hard for people to know that mediation exists unless they hear about it somewhere. And so what we're trying to do is educate aging off agency, that's not the right way to say it, but agencies that deal with aging populations, such as the Office on Aging, Legal Aid, the courts again, churches, family organizations, so that they can refer cases to us. John is heading up our elder task force and will be the one that reaches out and helps train the agencies that are referring cases to us, as well as help train the mediators to do the mediations and probably mediate some yourself, I would gather.
As if Jackie didn't have enough to do. I'm trying to bring more people into the mediation world. As we all know, the aging population is growing and growing. It's just going to become bigger and bigger, and it's a real wonderful market for the process of mediation, which is to try and resolve disputes or resolve issues in a win-win basis where everybody really gets what they need out of the resolution of the process. And elder mediation, the elder population just doesn't know about mediation. And so we've been thinking about trying to figure out ways to spread the word, so to speak, to get the word out there, not only to the members of the aging population, but to the most likely agencies or organizations or people that would refer people to mediation. They are dealing with the elderly population. They know when the elderly population are having issues or disputes that might lend themselves towards mediation. So we have a 2-year project, which hopefully will continue on, to try and spread the word about elder mediation to the local community. We've been working with, as Jackie said, the Office on Aging specifically, and the Legal Aid of East Tennessee, and some other agencies and some social workers that deal specifically with the aging population, and trying to let them know, one, about elder mediation. It is a sort of a specialty type of mediation. We're dealing with in mediations that involve the aging population and the special needs that they might have, and then we're dealing with issues that the aging population has, and it may or may not involve the elderly person. It may involve the institutions they're dealing with. It may involve their family members. It can involve a lot of different issues. Is it time to take away the car keys? That can be a very difficult conversation. And where we come in most usefully, where mediation can be most useful for that, is not where the people can resolve the problems themselves. It's where they can't resolve the problem. And I like to think of it as those difficult conversations.
So that's an example then of what, because I would imagine that mediating in families, even between something like that, how long can a person live alone, and even when you want to be respectful, for example, about whether a person should be driving, even when a family wants to be respectful, you're talking about trying, sometimes they get stuck in the best way to figure that out. And I just was reading something about that. A person was kind of just saying, well, just take the keys. And the person saying back, it's like, well, that's not incredibly respectful, and it's not always the best way to handle a situation. And so that's stuff like that is the kind of stuff that y'all would be working on.
That's a great example. It's not just a matter of taking the keys. You are creating a safer environment on the roads, of course, because if you're at that point, the person is having trouble driving safely on the road. But the other issues that are involved that need to be a part of the conversation is, what are the needs of that elderly person? I have places I need to go. You take away my car keys, how am I going to get there?
Right.
And that is a lot of the feeling of fear and panic that they have when you talk about that. And those are issues that we can raise, we can bring up, and we can have that conversation, and we can help them find ways, that both the family members and the elderly person find ways to make sure they're not isolated, that they can get to where they need to go. How am I going to get groceries? Just simple things like that.
Right. Well, what, besides families sort of mediating, what would be some other examples?
We were just talking with some members of the Office on Aging and trying to establish the next part of our project, which is training their staff and what mediation is and how we can use mediation with the elderly population, where they might be able to make referrals to us for that. What was the question?
Yeah, other examples
I don't know.
besides
Okay.
besides just with families,
Excellent.
like where else might mediation come into play?
Okay. They gave us some examples of situations that come up for them. There are situations involving mail order scams or telephone scams that the
yeah.
agent get involved in, and we may be able to have the conversation both with the service provider, either a social worker and the elderly person, and have a more detailed conversation about the challenges that that's creating and how to resolve in that. The inheritance disputes can often be worked out ahead of time.
Pre-probate.
Pre-probate,
Yeah.
or afterwards. If there are disputes afterwards, then that's another difficult conversation that some people may need help with, having help with that.
And also that the elderly have a higher incidence of abuse from all, from family or non-family. Not always physical abuse, although there can be a fear of that, and sometimes physical abuse, but financial abuse, emotional abuse, where they are wanting some help, but guess what? That person has to drive them to get to maybe to mediation, and then drive them back home, and they're living under the roof of the person. And so the training for elder mediators who are dealing with elder people, have to include that kind of almost sensitivity training and screening capability. And John knows a lot about that, screening for the ability to mediate safely. Because we don't want to put anyone in a worse situation than they walked in.
Elder mediation specifically deals with what is the capacity of the individual, and our goal is to include them in the mediation as much as possible and to the extent that it's possible. So we do get some specialized training in that also.
I was just thinking that question about that you would need some training on how you judge when, a person may be able to take in some things and not everything,
Absolutely.
or not remember everything, and that's a frustration for the person who's on the other side. But it could be a frustration for the mediator, so I presume you would need extra training in how you deal with cognitive ability. And
We do. We may do a mediation at their home where they can go off in the bedroom and rest for a while and then come back and participate. Or we can have food on the table to sort of make it a more homey atmosphere that people feel more comfortable with. A lot of ways to try to address the situation, both in the setting and in our prep work and in how we actually hold the mediation, conduct the mediation.
the other thing I was thinking about is that it related to the issue, but not necessarily always involving the older person. Sometimes families just need help figuring, before they even start talking to mom and dad, they have to talk to themselves so that they're not all fighting in front of mom and dad.
Right.
And imagine that would be a form of mediation as well.
Siblings? Oh, are you kidding? They fight? Yeah, I think so. And that is something that mediators have to be very aware of, is the dynamics in a family, because always, maybe all of us have been through this, but when adult siblings are dealing with mom and dad, these old family patterns come back.
Because we know mom always loves you best.
Yeah, mom loves you best, and you're the oldest, and I'm the baby, and I always get my way, and or I always get my way because I'm the oldest, or I'm in the middle, so I just duck and don't do anything. And there's all kinds of dynamics that come to play.
We are actually out of time. This has been really fascinating, and we just touched the surface of it. But thank you so much for being here, and I know we're going to learn more about this to come. Thank you.
Thank you very
Shelley.
much.